Dear Mr. Obama, I am a graduate student and a former art teacher. I know people such as myself rarely get an opportunity to directly ask you questions, but I have a few questions that I've been really wanting to ask you, and my inability to ask you these questions has left me with some pretty intense frustration. So, in order to assuage my frustration, I decided to record you a letter, a pretend letter mind you. And while I'm pretending, I may get excited that you might listen to this pretend letter. And I will pretend that if you hear this letter, you will actually be inspired by this letter. I will pretend it because I voted for you, and I believe that when faced with empirical evidence that what you're doing in any given situation is wrong, you are the type of president who will care enough to change. Per the Associated Press on May 21st, 2011, the statement "Schools Can Improve with the Right Incentives" headlined an article outlining a speech where you promoted your administration's Race to the Top initiative. Let me politely start off by saying that schools cannot improve in the way that you would like with the right incentives, and nor can students. Actually, not anyone improves in the way that you're talking about with the right incentives. This is not my opinion. This is not a feel-good notion that I have about children being educated in a field of sugar plums where everyone gets a gold star and lollipop. My opinion on this issue is research-based, spanning multiple studies from places such as Princeton, Oxford, MIT, and even the Federal Reserve. What I'm about to tell you, you can watch on YouTube, Mr. President, and I've provided the URL for you here, which will take you to a speech by Mr. Daniel Pink. In his 2009 speech at the TED conference, he presents many current research samples that shed light onto the faultiness of your education reform philosophy. I'm going to highlight only a few of them out of respect for your time. The first research study he shares is over 60 years old and was done by Gestalt psychologist Carl Dunker.
So, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, take a look at this. This is called the candle problem. Some of you might have seen this before. It was created in 1945 by a psychologist named Carl Dunker. Carl Dunker created this experiment that's used in a whole variety of experiments in behavioral science. And here's how it works. Suppose I'm the experimenter. I bring you into a room. I give you a candle, some thumbtacks, and some matches. And I say to you, your job is to attach the candle to the wall so the wax doesn't drip onto the table. Now, what would you do? Many people begin trying to thumbtack the candle to the wall. Doesn't work. Some people, and I saw somebody kind of make the motion over here, some people have a great idea where they light the match, melt the side of the candle, try to adhere it to the wall. It's an awesome idea, doesn't work. And eventually, after 5 or 10 minutes, most people figure out the solution, which you can see here. The key is to overcome what's called functional fixedness. You look at that box and you see it only as a receptacle for the tacks, but it can also have this other function as a platform for the candle. The candle problem.
Hey, look, I'm not trying to bore anyone with intellectual jargon here, but this is pertinent stuff, Mr. Obama. If I could find an American Idol to sing about it, I would. But all I have to work with right now is this zero-budget iMovie. To bring the conversation back to earth, functional fixedness is a dainty academic term for out-of-box thinking, aka creative problem solving. I think you can agree, Mr. President, that school reform is going to require a lot of creative problem solving. So how can we use the candle problem to enhance schools' ability to reform themselves, as you proposed in your speech on May 21st? Fast forward to present day. Sam Glucksberg from your wife's alma mater, Princeton, did a study using Dunker's candle problem. He studied 3 groups of people. He asked these groups to solve the candle problem, but this time he added a little race to the top flavor. The fastest problem solvers were given a large sum of money. The average problem solvers, a little money. And the slowest got no money.
If you're the fastest of everyone we're testing here today, you get $20. Okay, now this is several years ago, adjusted for inflation. It's a decent sum of money for a few minutes of work. Okay, it's a nice motivator. Question, how much faster did this group solve the problem? Answer, it took them on average 3.5 minutes longer. 3.5 minutes longer. Now this makes no sense, right? I mean, I'm an American, I believe in free markets, that's not how it's supposed to work, right? If you want people to perform better, you reward them, right? Bonuses, commissions, their own reality show, incentivize them. That's how business works, but that's not happening here. You've got an incentive designed to sharpen thinking and accelerate creativity, and it does just the opposite. It dulls thinking and blocks creativity. And what's interesting about this experiment is that it's not an aberration. This has been replicated over and over and over again for nearly 40 years.
To me, this last statement is one of the most interesting points in his entire speech. This experiment, he says, is not an aberration. It's been replicated over and over and over again for nearly 40 years. And Daniel Pink goes on to say that this is one of the most robust findings in social science, and also the most ignored. And I see he's correct. I see even my government is ignoring it. Have you created a federal education initiative that flies in the face of everything science has been telling us for the past 40 years because you are ignorant of it? I have a hard time believing that I, a 30-year-old graduate student, have access to this science that you, the leader of the free world, do not. So my question for you, Mr. Obama, is why? My reason for making this entire letter on this humble little teaching blog is, why does your federal education initiative make so little sense when held up to the science? If Race to the Top continues, let me predict what this science says is going to happen. Schools, administrators, teachers, and students will continue to replicate models that currently exist, but they will do it at a faster and higher rate than before in order to compete for federal money. Why will they continue to do what doesn't work? Well, they will because trying to figure out a better solution requires creative problem solving. And creative problem solving can only happen when people are given freedom to make mistakes. This was actually something that Albert Einstein said. And I think we can all agree he was a pretty smart guy. Schools aren't willing to risk when federal money is on the line. Incentives narrow focus and hinder creativity. That's not my opinion, that's research. And there will be more stringency, more test prep, more standards, more bureaucracy. Great. Children love learning in an environment such as this. Carrots and sticks don't work. If you're looking for solutions that do work, I'm available to talk, and I suspect most teachers would be. So ask them. Make a panel of teachers. Ask them what the research says. Ask them what children respond to. Their initiatives have been and always will be the child. Not profit motives, not kicking China's ass, just nurturing a love of learning that is internally motivated. What a concept, right?